I endeavored to guide my wife along a positive path. Ultimately, I revealed the truth to both her and the world, including her friend's spouse. My wife began a new job, which she appeared to genuinely enjoy. However, there was a colleague who, according to her, caused agitation and frustration among everyone. He was quite abrasive and often expressed his opinions candidly, though his remarks were rarely well received. After a week of hearing about him, I started to learn about his shortcomings as a father and husband to his wife. I couldn't help but notice that a certain level of intrigue had been reached. God damn it, I am a man's man. We have a complex life that is stressful sometimes, but I manage it well and always put my wife and kids first. Now I'm picking up on the intrigue with another man, and it started pissing me off. I think that when women start leaving the house and spending too much time with other men at work, if they aren't really grounded, self-aware, and intelligent, they will get swept away by some stupid jackass that doesn't give a damn about your family or his own, and will do whatever he can to T-bone your wife. So I started trying to bust up the intrigue. But I do not feel like for one moment that I should have to compete with a son of a bitch like this man. He was no competition anyway. I looked him up, and it appears that his hygiene isn't even that good. Regardless, I stayed on point and started keeping an eye on things. Sure enough, a few weeks later, and I get the first real blip on the radar. She had to stay over a little longer than usual. However, her clock-out sheet that comes with her paycheck did not match the time she called to say she had just gotten off and was heading home. There was about 20 minutes of missing time. I asked her what was up with that, and she claimed that she and one of the girls, of whom I had not heard one name yet, talked in the parking lot before she called me. I told her that she had better be telling me the truth, and she got real tense for a second, but then laughed and tried to act like I was kidding. I assured her I wasn't, and for the next week or so, nothing happened. As a matter of fact, she seemed to have been turned on by my assertiveness and my commanding tone. We had some great sex, and she even instigated a few times herself that week. I was used to instigating most of the time what she likes, but she was just on her game. I thought maybe the problem is solved, but then a few weeks later I noticed some distance and some quick discards of her phone when I entered the room. She could cover one of his shifts. I told her this was obviously a way to get her to communicate with him outside of standard protocols like the app they used at work to schedule and exchange shifts. I told her this was bullshit and that she was to in no way, shape, or form communicate with this guy like this again. We had a great week. Why should I have to put so much damn work into maintaining my marital relationship? So I went on, and a few weeks later, it happened. She was an hour late calling me after her cutoff time. I called her nothing. I texted her nothing. She finally called and apologized and said they got super busy, and she just forgot to let me know. It was all bullshit. However, I said okay, and hung up the phone. Then I went and got on her PC and pulled up all of her credit card accounts and bank accounts. I was on the third account when I saw it. This was an account that she had never really used before, but had in case of an emergency. There was a charge for $17.52 for a hotel room in a hotel about 1 block from the office they work at. I found all of this before she got home. I immediately lost all respect and love for my wife at this point. I had seen it coming. I had confronted her about it. I told her to watch it, and that he was trying to get to her, and that this was all unacceptable. I thought for sure my wife would have been grounded enough to do the right thing. But no, apparently she's an idiot, and now she would get to learn shit the hard way. So I covered my tracks and didn't say a word. You might think I am some kind of pansy, but I did it because I didn't want to fight with her about it. I wanted to destroy them both, so I waited, and it only took a few more nights to run into the same scenario again. So this time I called the sitter and drove to the hotel. I got out and took pics of every car in the lot, including hers. I logged into her account, and there was the charge for that night. I took a screenshot. I messaged the student's wife and gave her my phone number and asked her to call me. She called me through Messenger instead, which was fine, so I answered and finished explaining to her who I was exactly and told her where I was and what was going on. She had me look for his car and switched the call to a video call. Sure enough, there was his car in the back corner of the lot. I turned my camera towards it, and sure enough, she confirmed it was his. So she got ready and came on down as well, along with her big brother, and boy was he a large and intimidating individual. Listen, I am not a trashy or violent person, but I was definitely going outside of my lines a bit with my rage. However, I wasn't going to beat this guy senseless and go to jail over him. I was just there to catch them red-handed and rain down devastation, burn the bridge, and call it done. So I went live on Facebook in Tangiers. I sat there quietly and did not speak. I just sat there, my video fixed on the hotel entrance. Then finally, there she was walking toward the door and just about to come out. I saw her reach for her phone. She stopped for a second, and then I could see her look up. She must have tuned into my little live stream. I watched as she turned around and walked back into the building's interior. So I knew she was looking for a side door. I went to the side door and waited where she couldn't see me. Then all of a sudden, she came bursting out. Before she could retreat, she saw me there, phone in hand. All I said is, "Well, family and friends, there you have it." She almost imploded and tried to save face and asked me what I was doing there, as if she was going to be able to fool everyone and make them think this was all normal, and that there was nothing to see here. So I asked her to explain herself, and she refused, of course. So I followed her to her car and told her that everyone knows what is going on and that I was filing for divorce. She started her car and started backing out, but through the window, under the parking lot lights, you could see her face red, tears flowing. But then there was a huge commotion from the front of the lot. Apparently, her husband had come right out the front door and was met swiftly by his wife and her brother. Her brother wasted no time and began ragdolling him and beating his ass. So being the civilized man I am, I turned my camera towards them and began to narrate. Here you have the son of a bitch that has somehow convinced my dear wife to sleep with him for a second time at this hotel. Yeah, I just found out, and yes, that's what we are doing here. Apparently, his wife is also upset with him, and that is her big, really big brother beating his ass. Yes, those are the sounds of the sirens inevitably on their way here to break up this horrific and yet somehow satisfying confrontation. I kept the video going and showed my viewers how the police pounced on the enraged giant of a man who was doing my dirty work for me. They cuffed him and took him away, tending to the bloody mess of a man who was left lying on the pavement. He was somewhat coherent, but they called for and took him away in an ambulance. I learned later that he had a broken arm and a broken orbital. Ouch, man. I guess cheating doesn't pay, does it? After the show was over, I said my last farewell and turned off the live stream. My wife's mother called me on my way home and was super angry, but also apologetic for her daughter's obvious lack of morals. She was not only a cheater now, but also a homewrecker. 2 titles she would now have to wear for the rest of her days in this city. I went home and didn't say a word except to stay away from me and not touch me ever. Being a capable man, I wrote up an agreement the very next day and started filing the divorce paperwork myself. I didn't need a lawyer. I just studied it all for a few minutes and filled it all out, got her to sign it, and boom, it was done and filed. 2 months later, we had our day in court, and it was over. So yeah, that is how I got my revenge and ended my marriage. I dropped a truth bomb and didn't let them get away with just a warning. Why should I suffer and them not have to as well? Yeah, fuck them. If you let the poison stay in your soul, then you are the only one who suffers. If you get the poison out, then they are the ones suffering and not you, who instigated the suffering. They did. So who should suffer? They should, and they did suffer. Game over. Life moves on. Well, there you have it. I guess he got the poison out by clearing his name and reputation and exposing the act that disrupted he and his children's lives. What do you think? What would you have done in his shoes? When you subscribe, be sure to click the notification bell. Click here for more.